Morning everybody, how are y'all doing today? You can probably tell by my voice, but I am a little bit sick right now. But we're pushing through because I have not uploaded in almost a week and a half and I feel really bad about it. And I didn't not upload because I was sick. I actually felt fine for most of the time I was gone. I kind of got a bit burned out as well, you know, it happens sometimes. But sometimes to get rid of burnout, you have to go back and do the thing that you were burned out on. And thankfully, Reforge Gaming has provided me with a perfect opportunity to do so. Because Reforge thinks that GTA 6 will be running at 60 FPS on the PS5 Pro. And if history has taught us anything, that will only be happening if they drastically lower the resolution to like 800 or 720p or something like that, and then do some insane upscaling. But at that point, what's even the point? Especially since the Pro has the same CPU as the regular PS5. So even if Digital Foundry's right and this thing somehow does end up being equivalent to a 4070, which I strongly press X to doubt on that, by the way, that CPU bottleneck is going to be an absolute killer. I'm expecting either only 30 FPS or they'll add an uncapped frame rate mode as well. And let me tell you, if you're planning on getting a PS5 Pro, just please don't overset your expectations. For your sake, just temper them. But yeah, this clip is pretty long. It's like almost 13 minutes. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just get straight into this.
But I think people, and I'm going to continue to say this, I said it 2 weeks ago, and I got to say it really loud and proud in my video this morning. People get ahead of themselves. People got ahead of themselves last week, and they all look like morons now. They look stupid, and they should, because they were being dishonest and they were misleading people.
Does anybody else see the irony in Reforge calling other people dishonest and saying they were misleading people? Like, okay, man. Although I will agree, people do get ahead of themselves. We've all done it before. Can't play the clip because of copyright, but we're only human after all. And basically what Reforge is referring to when he's saying people got ahead of themselves last week is when people were hating on the PS5 Pro, and how now the showcase of all the games and the Digital Foundry analysis prove that it is actually a massive upgrade. Even though, guess what? Digital Foundry's video, I've watched it myself, is just a bunch of zooming in showing off slight resolution improvements. And I'm gonna be completely honest, the most impressive results were shown on PS4 games. And even then, it wasn't anything insane. Certainly not $700 insane. So no, I would say that everybody saying that the PS5 Pro is a scam, myself included, we're still correct.
Those types of people should be seen for what they are. They are not to be trusted. They're not. They're dishonest people who make money from emotion. Like, they basically rage bait, and that's how they pay their bills. Like, they manipulate people and mislead people, and that's how they make their money. I have no respect for it. I think it's gross.
Holy mother of pot calling kettle black. You are one to talk about manipulating and misleading people, given you went on that rant a few months ago about how if you didn't get enough memberships, YouTube was gonna force us to run ads on videos. So, let me put this in the most respectful way possible. Shut the fuck up!
There's an entire industry of that all across YouTube, and it's all over gaming now. Just dishonest rage farmers who just say things that aren't true, misrepresent, attack people, call people names, and they make money doing it. I think it's gross. I have no respect for it at all.
I wonder who he's referring to when he says that. Could it potentially be his ex-husband, Alex? It's amazing to see that he's still mad at him. By the way, I just realized a few days ago, that whole breakup they had was almost a year ago. Or maybe it was a year ago at this point. It is crazy how time flies.
And the same thing's going to happen, I think, with GTA. Did you see the difference they got in Dragon's Dogma 2? A CPU bottlenecked game that was roughly getting 30 to 40 in city, and they were getting mid-50s in the city.
I don't think he comprehends how idiotic of a statement this is. I mean, what am I saying? Of course he doesn't. But dude, you're saying they got from the mid-40s to the mid-50s on the PS5 Pro in Dragon's Dogma 2, and it's a CPU bottlenecked game. So, wow, congratulations. A 45% increase in GPU power along with PSSR upscaling gets you 10 more frames. Does this dude not understand that GTA 6 is most likely going to be bottlenecked to hell by CPUs? I mean, it's an open world game. Open world games notoriously get CPU bottlenecked, and GTA 5 still has those issues. This is why I say there won't be a 60 FPS mode, and if there's anything, it's gonna just be an uncapped frame rate mode. Dragon's Dogma 2 got 10 extra frames out of this upgrade. GTA 6 is probably going to be no different, if not worse.
stands to reason that if they were able to get that kind of headroom in a game like Dragon's Dogma, where that game was basically 30 FPS at launch, they did some updates, and they got it into like the 40s in some of those spots. That thing was running mid-50s within VRR range. They got that much headroom in that game with the upscaling and the ray tracing and the stronger GPU. All of that basically helped them get from the 40s into the 50s. So I'm here to tell you that gives me some confidence that we're gonna see some good work at GTA, I think.
Then, dear God, you are going to be disappointed. Again, temper your expectations, people. I don't want to get too deep into the GTA performance history yet because we're going to get to that in a couple minutes. But no GTA game has ever launched at 60 FPS, and GTA 5 took 3 console generations to hit 60 FPS. This whole argument of, oh, Dragon's Dogma 2 got a 10 FPS boost, therefore it must be the same for GTA. Let's go back a generation. This is like saying that because God of War ran at like 40 FPS instead of 30 on the PS4 Pro in performance mode, that means they were going to be able to raise the frame rate limit of GTA 5. And look what happened. The Pro ended up getting slightly better graphics, but absolutely no change in frame rate whatsoever. Let it be said, if they have a good 60 FPS mode for GTA 6, dropping the resolution to 800p and then doing mad upscaling doesn't count. If there is an actual decent resolution at 60 FPS mode for GTA 6, I will take my L, but something tells me it's just not going to happen.
Now, I could be wrong. I'm not saying it definitively, but I'm saying this gives me some positivity here. It's giving me some positivity about GTA here. Everybody jumped to their conclusions. Everybody jumped. And why?
Because history has shown us that you are probably wrong. GTA 6 is most likely not going to run at 60 FPS on the PS5 Pro. And so far, what we've seen, not just from Sony's presentation, but from the Digital Foundry analysis as well, this console seems hard focused on just raising resolutions in games, which again, as we've seen, it's not really super noticeable unless you zoom in and you have a side-by-side, but whatever. This console isn't gonna end 30 FPS. You're still gonna have the 30 FPS modes on this thing.
Listen, I like Richard Ledbetter, but I broke down his argumentation about GTA, and I find it to be not compelling at all. Because he said, every GTA up to now has launched at 30. And I want to press pause and just stop and say, Richard, when did those games come out, and what platforms did they land on? Because when you answer that question, it becomes painfully obvious that of course all those games launched at 30 because virtually all of the games back then launched at 30. Therefore, the argument's not very compelling. It isn't.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong.
My brother in Christ, you are how old now? I'm assuming you're in your early 30s. Whatever, you're older than me. You have more experience with those past consoles. I, if you don't know, am 20. The PS2 is older than me. The original Xbox is older than me. And even I know most games prior to the PS3 and 360 generation ran at 60 FPS. Now, I had to do some research on exactly why that was the case, but if I'm understanding correctly, basically on those really old TVs, the CRTs and whatnot, 30 FPS looked awful and would basically make you want to have a seizure. So 60 was basically required unless you just wanted to not sell your game at all. And then with the PS3 and 360 generation, 30 FPS still looked bad, but it wasn't seizure inducing on the newer TVs that were coming out. So for a lot of games, not all of them, but for a lot of games, devs would focus on making the graphics look a lot better, and they would drop the frame rate to 30. And then especially with the PS4 and Xbone generation, graphics took a massive leap, especially shown in games like God of War. And guess what? Pretty visuals are more marketable to most people than frame rate. I remember last winter, I was helping my cousin build a PC for the first time, and he said something along the lines of like, oh, I've heard about something called frame rates. Like, I would be willing to bet that a lot of people who play games casually don't even know what frame rates are, but everybody loves some good visuals. So no, 30 was not the standard on the PS2 generation and prior. 60 was the standard. Look at this tweet from John John Linneman. He went through his old PS2 catalog, and he wrote down every game that ran at 60, which he claims is more than half the library. You can pause and zoom in to read the list, but you can see it is insanely long. Don't say that's what she said. And guess what? Even though 60 was the standard on those older consoles, the GTA games have always launched at 30. Every single one launched at 30 FPS. And as we saw with GTA 5, again, it took 3 console generations to get that game to 60. It's like the classic quote, those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it. In this case, Reforge doesn't know jack about gaming history, and now he's all high on copium just hoping that GTA 6 will be 60 FPS. Sorry, brother, if you want that, you're gonna have to play it on your PC, which you're too lazy to download drivers for.
It isn't. Now, you want to go on and say they always make their games very CPU intensive. Well, they somehow figured out to get GTA 5 at 60. They pushed out that update. So clearly, that's something that they've decided is a value. That's something they've decided to work on, which communicates to me that's a value and something they're going to work on for GTA 6.
I'm gonna ask this in the nicest way possible. How dumb are you? You're saying they got GTA 5 to 60 FPS despite it being CPU bottlenecked. Yeah, they did, and guess what? It took them 7 years and 2 console generations to do it. It took the CPUs of the Series X and PS5 to get GTA 5 to hit 60 FPS. A 10-year-old game, or 7 years old when the consoles came out, whatever. From what we've seen in the trailers so far, GTA 6, not only was the trailer running at 30 FPS, but the graphics look significantly better than 5. I'm assuming the environments are going to be much more dense, and the map is probably going to be bigger as a whole. The earliest I would expect GTA 6 to be running 60 FPS on consoles is with the PS6 and the Xbox, what's it going to be called? I'm thinking either the Xbox 2 or the 720. The Xbox 720 would unironically be a great name for the next one, I think.
I think that's a more compelling argument than his. Choose which argument you think is more compelling. I don't think he's wrong and I'm right. I think his argument is not compelling because these games launch at a time where everything was 30. And GTA 6 is coming to the market when virtually everything is launching with 60 as a mode option. The market shifted. I don't think we're in the same place anymore.
Which argument should I pick? The one that actually makes sense or Reforge's? I think the answer is fairly clear, but you can pick whichever one you want. And I'm not going to touch on it again, but no, dude, you're just wrong. 60 used to be the standard, now 30 is becoming more standard as time has gone on. And the GTA games have always launched at 30 despite 60 being the standard. All the evidence says you're wrong.
And when GTA, 3, 4, and 5, when all those launched, 30 was basically the standard. Not everything was 30. Most was 30, homie. Most. In 2013, you really want to go back and say 11 years ago, you want to count up all the 60 FPS games, homie? I was there.
Again, in 2013, 30 FPS was becoming more common, but let's go back further to the PS2 and prior. The standard used to be 60, and then TV started actually being able to handle 30 without making you have a seizure, so that became more common. You give people crap for being dishonest and misleading people, and that's exactly what you're doing right here. You're cherry-picking 2013 because that's when a lot of 30 FPS games were coming out, but if you look at the many console generations before the PS3 and 360, the standard was always 60, and GTA games always launched at 30 despite that. I just love that he tries to clarify, oh, most were 30. I didn't say all of them were 30, and he's still wrong.
I was there, brother. Games hitting console in 2013, I would say 99% of those games were 30 FPS games. There were almost no 60 FPS games back then.
Even when talking about the 360 generation, you're wrong. Now, I've been doing a little bit of research, and I can't find a whole lot on this. I can't find any, hard numbers of what percentage of 360 games ran at 60 FPS. But I would be willing to believe that more than half the games ran at 30 FPS. That I could believe. 99%? I do not believe. That sounds like a gross over-exaggeration. And I mean gross, vile even. The most putrid, disgusting overestimation ever. Okay, I'm done.
60 FPS only started to become a conversation around the time that I was going into Destiny 2. And then you started having games that were trying to do it, whether it was like Titanfall 2 or They rolled it out in Fortnite, I believe, in 2018. They got Fortnite to do 60 FPS on the old gen consoles in 2018. I believe that was, we researched that a while ago, and that's what we found. In 2013, Tommy, 11 years ago, 30 FPS was just what games ran at. That was just it.
Even if you're right about that, you're ignoring all of the other console generations before that, where 60 was the standard. You could so easily look this stuff up. I look stuff up on stream all the time. Every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, be sure to join us. God willing, I feel better by then. I don't understand why you can't just go to Google and look this stuff up. Again, for the 360 generation, the results aren't like super concrete or anything, but for the PS2 and prior, it's very clear. Most games were 60 FPS. I'm honestly sort of wondering if he doesn't want to look this stuff up because he knows he's wrong. I would not put it past him. And to say that 60 FPS was only a conversation when he started getting into Destiny 2, are you kidding me right now? There were always discussions of 60 FPS. It's just Destiny 2 really amplified it because it was a first-person shooter that ran at 30 on consoles. Which, guess what? Even back in 2013 was uncommon. Basically every COD, except for like COD 3, I think, ran at 60 FPS. One of the biggest things I remember about Destiny 2, at least on console, is how poorly it ran. Only now on the current gen hardware does it actually run well. Also, anybody else notice that Reforge's only argument is trust me bro, I was there, when plenty of other people who were also there are saying he's wrong? Kind of funny.
So to base your prediction about GTA 6 off of an 11-year-old game launch, I don't find it compelling. I respect Richard Ledbetter. I think he's very good at what he does, but I find that logic and that argumentation that he trotted out, I don't think it's very compelling at all. And there are far more games now coming to market figuring it out and getting to 60, and when a game like Dragon's Dogma 2 figures it out, buddy, I'm feeling pretty good about it. I'm like, okay.
Except by your own admission, Dragon's Dogma 2 doesn't even hit 60. You said after multiple patches they were hitting mid-40s on the PS5, and the Pro can barely do mid-50s. And again, completely ignoring that every other GTA game has launched at 30, and it took GTA 5 3 generations to hit 60. If GTA 5 is just now hitting 60 on console, do you really think GTA 6, a game that's going to be bigger, more detailed, and more dense than GTA 5, is gonna hit 60? You are dumb and wrong, and myself and others will remember this clip when the game ends up being 30. By the way, Reforge, it says gullible on the ceiling.
In the 90s, games were at 60. Okay, I'm gonna say this again, and hopefully it's clear. The vast majority of the games, virtually all of the games back then, we're at 30 FPS. It was basically the expectation in the standard. Did I say all? Did I say every single? Did I say there wasn't a single 60 FPS game back then? Did I say that? You're shadowboxing. I never said there were no 60 FPS games back then. I said there was virtually none.
Why does this guy get so salty and passive-aggressive anytime somebody disagrees with him? It's actually insane. Like, brother, chill. It's not that big of a deal. You don't have to get so angry over this. And once again, you are wrong. Whether you said most old games ran at 30 or all old games ran at 30, doesn't matter because either way, you're wrong. Most old games ran at 60. I was not even alive during that time, and I can tell you that. Because all it took for me to find out that information was either doing some research on it, which you clearly don't want to do for whatever reason. Again, probably because you know you're wrong. Or I hit up some people who were alive back then who can confirm for me whether or not it's true. It's not always the case, but usually when everybody disagrees with you, you're probably in the wrong. This is, in fact, one of those cases.
There was virtually none. Like, back then, that was basically the standard. Like, virtually every game you played was running at 30. That was just what most studios targeted. COD's been 60 for a long time. When did COD introduce 60? Was it 11 years ago? I played COD on my 360 and my Xbox One. Fighting game 60? I mean, again, there was very few.
Yes, every single COD game has run at 60 since 2003. Saying virtually every game back then ran at 30 is... I can't even describe how wrong he is. I'm not gonna replay the Scrubs clip because I don't want to overuse the joke or anything. So I'll play this one instead.
We made it up.
We made this one up. It's a made-up tale. It's a total fabrication.
Many NES games ran at 60 FPS according to the AI summary. You're talking like side scrollers? Like 480 60 side scrollers? Okay. So what you are doing is called we could either call it a red herring or completely irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant. So let's retract the argument. I want you to see how your response is nonsensical, okay? It's a nonsensical response.
Alrighty, this should be interesting. Reforge is backed into a corner now. He just looked it up and he realized that NES games did run at 60 FPS, or at least most of them. Let's see what he says now that he's been proven completely wrong, because apparently, if you prove him wrong, your argument is completely irrelevant. I cannot wait to see how he tries to logic his way out of this one. Also, can I just say, thank God we're moving on. I was getting so bored repeating the same points over and over again. Thank you to Reforge's viewers for calling him out.
We're talking about GTA 6 in 2025, and I'm arguing that Richard Ledbetter's commentary and argument wasn't compelling because when GTA 5 released in 2013, virtually all games were 30 FPS, especially games like that. Three-dimensional games, first-person perspective games, third-person perspective games. Virtually all of the games launching 11 years ago in that vein were at 30 FPS, so it's not compelling. And your addition to the conversation is, well, there were side-scrollers running at like 400 by 200 pixels that were 60 on the Nintendo. That has literally nothing to do with the conversation.
It was not just those 240p side-scrollers, though. Up through the PS2 generation, 60 FPS was the standard, even in those 3D games. But guess what games didn't launch at 60 FPS despite that being the standard? The GTA games. That is the point being made. No GTA game has ever launched at 60, whether it was standard or not. I don't know why this is so hard to understand. Forget side-scrollers for a second. The original Halo games ran at 60. Fighting games ran at 60. 3D platformers ran at 60. The point is, 60 was the standard, but GTA games always released at 30. So even though 60 is, I guess I should say more so the standard now, because a lot of games still have 30 FPS modes, but whatever. Even though 60 is more common now than it was in 2013, that does not mean GTA 6 is going to launch at 30. This is like saying that because I got an A on my economics exam, that means I'm going to get an A on my Chinese history exam, even though I am far worse at Chinese history than I am at economics.
That's irrelevant. The Dreamcast, irrelevant. Nintendo, Super Nintendo, that's irrelevant to the conversation. In 2013, when GTA 5 launched, virtually every game was at 30 if they were doing a game like that. You could probably find side-scrollers or smaller games or lower resolution games that ran at 60, but the vast majority of games hitting like 360 and the Xbox One era, the vast majority were 30 FPS. That's why the argument isn't compelling.
I am sorry for repeating myself so much, but I kinda have to. The point is, 60 FPS was the standard back on older consoles like the PS2, yet the GTA games still launched at 30. Now, I will say, I don't know if anybody in Reforge's chat has mentioned that yet, and so I can understand with him being kinda stupid, it might be hard for him to put that together, but my god, this is mind-numbing to watch. He just either doesn't want to get it, or he just can't get it, and I genuinely don't know which one it is. Think, Reforge, for the love of God. If the old GTA games released at 60, because that was the standard, and then, let's say around the Xbox 360 Xbone generations, 30 became more standard, and that's why GTA 5 released at 30, then maybe you would have a point, but you don't. God, it is so annoying when people refuse to accept that they're wrong. The goalpost shifting is insane. First, it was the overwhelming majority of old games ran at 30. Then when he's proven wrong about that, it's, oh, well, those are side-scrollers, so they don't count. Or, oh, they're running at lower resolution, so that doesn't count.
Think, Mark!
His argument is about the timeline of GTA, and if you look at the timeline of GTA and when those games launched, Nintendo, no bearing on the conversation. Dreamcast, no bearing on the conversation.
Okay, fine, but GTA came out on the PS2, guess what? It ran at 30 FPS. And remember that tweet from earlier that was talking about all those games that ran at 60 FPS? All of those were 3D games. So you can't weasel your way out of this one by saying, oh, it was just a side scroller that was at like 480p. Even on consoles that had 3D games, 60 was the standard. God help me. I know this video, you've only been watching it for what, like about 25 minutes or so? I have been editing and recording this for about 3 hours. My brain feels like mush right now, and going to the gym could clear my head and like rejuvenate me, but I don't know if I should go because I'm sick, and even if I wipe down the equipment, people still might get sick. Oh my god, let's just get through the rest of this before I lose it.
The industry switched from performance to graphics. Right. You're inadvertently agreeing with me. At the time that GTA 5 launched, like, that's what people were focused on. They were making, you know, like face wraps. Remember that? In like Max Payne and GoldenEye and stuff, like wrapping faces and adding polygons and adding textures. And they were trying to do all sorts of things to make the games look like they were at like a higher fidelity.
And for the 10 millionth time, even back when 60 FPS was the standard and was the focus on the PS2, when other 3D games were 60 FPS, guess what? GTA was still 30. Do you really think that is going to change, especially since the Pro has the same CPU as the base PS5? I guarantee you it is not. Alright, so I just combed through the last like 3 minutes of the clip. There's not really much else worth talking about. It's just talking in circles again, bringing up the same points. And I'm not trying to waste your time more than I already have. This video is what, like 26 minutes right now? Jesus. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up here. I think you guys get the message at this point. GTA has always been 30 on launch on consoles and likely always will be. And I'm very interested to see if and when GTA 6 launches at 30 on the PS5 Pro, what Reforge is gonna have to say about it. I cannot wait. But yeah, anyway, with all that being said, that's gonna do it for this video. I was right about what I said in the beginning. It does feel good to get back into it. Sometimes if you're burned out on something, whether it be a game or a hobby or whatever, just force yourself to try it a little bit, and who knows, maybe you'll get right back into it. And hopefully now that I'm back into it, I can actually find more stuff to talk about. I know I'm late to the party, but maybe I can find something about the Horizon remaster. God, what a joke. The PS5 will truly be remembered as the remaster Station 5. But yeah, anyway, with all that being said, thank you all so much for watching. Like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't like it, subscribe if you want to see more. Join us every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern for Salt streams. Ignore the fact that I missed last week. And I've decided that at least this October, maybe not every, but at least for this one, I want to stream more often, and I want to stream a bunch of horror games, whether they be single player or multiplayer. I don't know if I'm going to have a specific schedule for it, but I've already picked out a few games that I'd love to play on stream. And I would set it up so that super chats and members and stuff would jump scare me. I was thinking of calling it Clustober, because that's about as dumb of a title as you'd expect from me. Whatever, look forward to that. I hope to see you guys there, and I will catch you all next time.